Can you tell me the story of this space?
Okay, yeah, sure. The burial ground's been here since like 1860. There was a family that was the caretaker family for like 7 generations, from like 1860 to 1970, let's say, more or less. Then there was a series of like hippie Quakers living here, and then finally, like 20 some years ago, they reorganized and decided that they were going to have like a family be the caretakers again. And that led to like, what do we do with this garden? Let's turn it into a community garden. And so people got recruited to help with the community garden. And then within like 3 or 6 months, the family situation dynamic totally fell apart. People got divorced, people got left. They're like, whoa, what's gonna happen? And so what happened was Graham and Lucy moved in, and Graham was then the caretaker here for almost 20 years. Along the way, Nancy Wygant, who was the plant person out at Bartram's, was all of a sudden like, she is the community garden coordinator. And over the years, the community garden has gone up and down and all around, different schemes and different ideas about what to do, but most of them were what I would call extractive processes of like people coming here, taking, growing things and then removing them elsewhere. And the relationship between the community garden people, the people who were Graham and Lucy, who were living here, raising their child who was born here, Simon, who is a grave digger now, and the committee, the graveyard burial ground committee, has been up and down and all over the place. And then Graham and Lucy split up, Simon split his time between, and then Graham started looking towards retirement. And over the course of the years, this space has been used for many different purposes. Trees have come down, apricot trees and apples and cherry trees have been planted, other things have gone. It's been really volatile. And but it also seems to be a little hard to maintain focus here for a lot of reasons. Mostly it's like West Philly oriented people, but the whole crossing Cobb's Creek thing has been really challenging psychologically, and also that extra 10-15 minutes of getting over here through that conflux of the road right there has been really hard. And so going on 4 or 5 years ago, I was doing the bring out your dead and let them eat cake ritual, and in the middle of that, Nancy, who I've known casually for many years, just sort of sat down and was like, oh, this is really great, da, 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 da. And I sort of casually mentioned, it's like, oh yeah, I better get around to start growing flax so I can weave my death shroud eventually. And she says, oh, why don't you do that at the burial ground? It's like, burial ground, what? And so she tells me all about the burial ground. After, in November or something, I come out and visit, and so the next spring I'm invited to grow flax here. It was pretty much Nancy and maybe 2 or 3 other people who were using the space, and then over the course of the subsequent years, I have sort of like been aired the responsibility of this, for better or worse. And part of that is figuring out what was happening here and knowing the history, but then also what is the potential here. My question has always been, what is the conversation between the burial ground and the garden and the burial ground? How are they working together? Couldn't we like change this conversation and make it more of a symbiotic one instead of something that's here kind of attached on the side? And this conversation was very much supported by Graham and a few other people. There was another person here, and then all these other people, and also the Quaker Burial Ground committee people were also very interested in just someone doing something with this. And over the course of many conversations, the idea of growing flowers for mourners here was kind of floated, because one of the things is that 8 years ago now, the imams, the Muslim leaders, and the Muslim funeral directors got together and approached the Quaker Burial Ground Committee saying, could we have a Muslim section here? There weren't many other local options to be buried in the West Philly or Philadelphia neighborhood that was affordable and accessible and respected Muslim burial traditions, which are fairly similar to Quaker ones. Simple burial, get them in the ground, wrapped in a shroud, pine box, earth, whatever. And so it went from a sleepy burial ground of 5, 6, 7 Quaker burials and other people being buried here to all of a sudden 100, and then 200, and then 300, and then 400-ish burials a year. A lot. And the influx of just people coming here to do their mourning process, plus it being like people who come from oppressed communities without a lot of money, with a lot of it from gun violence. Like there were 86 of these, that was 2 years. The last statistic I know is like 83 or 86 burials here out of 300 and some from gun violence. And so it's really hard. And there are a lot of kids, young people, teenagers who are the victims of gun violence here. And so it's real deep. Like talking to the moms here, talking to the families, talking to the people, it's just, oh, there is a need, as there are so many hidden needs and overt needs within these dynamics of life and death here in West Philly and beyond. Or, this is it, And so last year, after lots of back and forth, it's like, well, let's just see if I can grow flowers. I've grown flowers for pretty, and I've grown flowers for food production, but I've never grown them for flower production. That just seems like, wow. So we planted some flowers and they grew, and it's like, oh, and we probably got 50 bouquets out of it, not just for the mourners here, but also supplying them to the memorial altars. When the Breonna Taylor Memorial was up temporarily outside of Dalek on Baltimore Avenue, we brought flowers there. We've also been, last summer, much more consistently bringing flowers to Remy Fels's memorial mural altar space over on 50th and Pentridge. And then just bringing them to events, like morning events and altar events. But also just like working with the grave diggers here and getting them to feel comfortable to say, oh, there's this family that needs something for mourning, and get them empowered to come in here, cut some flowers, and do that gesture. The gesture is to really just open up a space of connection and actually recognizing that the process of mourning is really unwieldy and really problematic, and something we don't do well within our culture, of actually integrating this death conversation and this mourning conversation into what we do. Anything else you want to follow me up with?
One question I have is, what flowers did you grow?
Well, last year...
And can you show us what we have now?
Yeah, well, okay. Well, last year we managed to grow lots of zinnias. Zinnias were the superstar. We grew cosmos, which were great. We had dahlias. But we also, it was the summer of poison ivy and groundhogs. And so the groundhogs ended up eating all of the dahlias down to the ground multiple times. And then they went and ate the cosmos down to the ground. We also, and so I had to started putting up fences like this, but also an electric fence, because they were just so aggressive. So here are cosmos. These were the ones I started from seed this year. And then I got COVID, and so they were all straggly, but they're finally growing. There was zinnia planted all in here too, but then they all died. We have this year garnet boy bachelor buttons over there. We have some lollipop flowers. These are zinnias that are, third triad zinnias here. We have monarda, which is a perennial, and those are going to be nice and big, and I'll transplant them out once they get going. We have the dahlias over here. Getting COVID really threw everything off. And so I have a whole bunch of dahlia bulbs that maybe will be able to be planted and saved. I don't know, but these are the ones we got this year. I had the fence to here, and then I had to raise it to here. And this seems to be working to keep the groundhogs out of here finally. But it's really hard to manage this. And then we also have this project over here, which are growing gourd vines. There's two different kinds of gourd vines. There's the big leafed ones, which are Corsican Corsican or banjo gourds, because traditionally banjos were made with gourd bodies. And my housemate grew up playing the banjo and did all this research, and he's like, I want to grow banjo gourds so we can create banjo making kits for the kids in the neighborhood. It's like, great, I'll start growing them. And sort of like calling people's bluff. It's like, oh, you want a project? I'll give you a project. But then also I've been growing loofah gourds for, this will be the 4th year. The first year I did them, of course, I got hundreds and hundreds of them. And then the second year and the third year were not that prolific. But this year is the first time they self-seeded. And so they're very slow, but these are the little ones. But all of a sudden they're taking off with this hot weather. And maybe we'll get a few loofah gourds. But you can see the banjo gourds, the Corsican gourds. There's 2 over there. There's 1 up there. And ideally, they should be, I'm told, they're about 13 inches. Because that's like the traditional size. But some people grow these things and they're giant. They're used traditionally for all sorts of storage vessels and drinking vessels and other things in lots of different cultures. So there's that. These are all carnelian cherries along here. And people come and harvest them for making jam and medicine out of them. As you can probably look around, you can just see tons of self-seeded sunflowers, which we cut, and also because people love the sunflowers so much. Those are banana trees. Those were from one of the burial ground committee members' boyfriend's garden, who they had a gardening emergency. They were being evicted from their garden, so they had all these pups. And so like 3 years ago, they just planted them, and then they come back. And those are doing the best. And with a little bit more attention, they could probably survive even more and get to be like 6, 8, 10 feet tall. It's probably going to be another 20 years before they actually get to produce fruit. But I know people in Gainesville, Florida, who have managed to get bananas there. But that takes a little bit of effort. I don't think we're there yet. Maybe 10, 20 years. There's a lot of naturalized things here that were once the red flowers are the Japanese, what are they called now? The ones you put in, they're usually green, but
it's just an S, right?
They're the ones you put into when you ferment the plums and things like that. I forget the name of them, my brain. But yeah, and then we have lots of milkweeds that are just naturalizing, that are for the the monarch butterflies. We have all that over there that's trying to be taken back and rehabilitated from Canada thistle, which is one of these invasive runner things. And down at the end I have some more zinnias in place. We're going to be growing seed oil poppies, this kind called Elka, but I forgot to cold stratify the seeds, so they didn't come up this year. But I have a whole bunch more, and we'll get more last year, because the idea is to create examples of sustainable oil harvesting things. We have the sunflowers, but other alternatives to that. And the story of the Elka poppy is really beautiful, which I won't tell right now. And the idea of like creating oils so that we can use them for eating, because in our having really delicious nutty poppy seeds in our yummy food is great, but then also you can crush them and get the oil for culinary things, but also for herbal preparations. And the idea of creating ways of people paying attention to these systems is really important. We have a fig tree over there, which is lovely. Let's go this way.
Prolific fig tree.
And some, last year we finally got some that actually tasted really good. And we have apples, we have cherries. The groundhogs are climbing the cherry trees and eating the cherries. I hope to rehabilitate this hoop house frame. Last year I just decided that it was a designated place just to put all of our plant materials and all the compost, just to have it all in one place, knowing eventually that we would have to like dig this all out to repair it. But it was just an easy thing to tell people. It's like, pick all this plant material up and put it underneath the hoop house frame. It's also a place sort of like to create really good soil that eventually can be sifted and gone out. This is you can see all the
Fig stars.
figgies
So
and up
many.
there. Yeah. Oh, they're starting to. We might get a few that are good. We have a lot of volunteer black walnut trees. This is this is oh shit, bone set. These tall things here, which is one of the best pollinators. They have profusions of tiny white flowers that all pollinators love. And usually I let a few little areas grow, but because I was sick and out of commission for a month, it's just growing everywhere. Those tree logs are from 2 red oaks that have the fungal disease, so they were taken down. The tree taker outer people left this for us, and we're gonna eventually cut it up and then offer it as an exchange. People can make a donation for firewood. So we're doing that. We have we have dozens and dozens of tomato cages and other cages. These are the 2 cherry trees. This is an old apple tree. This is where the Alka tryout was, the failure. These are more zinnias. You can see that they're coming up finally. And I will probably and it seems like some of the varieties are doing better than others, so we'll change it over. This is horseradish we have growing here, which makes really good horseradish. Yum. This whole area over here is probably the most fertile and tended to area, but it's also like the area that I've been wanting someone to come in and do a project on, because I don't want to do all of this. But again, finding people who actually get this and can handle it and not just do it for a year and then walk away. So, we're trying to get this area a little bit more tamed, get it dug up and then put in a cover crop. The same with over here, to not just suppress the Canada thistle, but also to improve the soil. This is probably the best soil in the garden. This is probably some of the most overworked. And so we're working it.